Today I'm reviewing one of the most gripping and intense fantasy books I've read recently, The Puppy War by R.F. Kuang. This book takes everything you think you know about military fantasy and turns it completely on its head. Hi everyone, I'm Razu and this is RazuTales. On this channel I make videos about books, writing, and do deep dives into horror and fantasy. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you appreciate the video, consider hitting the like and subscribe button to join our community of book lovers. Now, let's get started. You know those books that start one way and then completely transform into something else? The Puppy War is exactly that kind of story. What begins as a seemingly familiar tale of a young student entering a prestigious military academy becomes something far darker and more complex than you could possibly imagine when you start the book. Let me tell you about our protagonist, Rin. She's a war orphan from the rural south of Nikan, a fantasy world inspired by the history of China. When we first meet her, she's determined to escape an arranged marriage by testing into Sinigard, the most elite military academy in the empire. Through sheer determination and countless sleepless nights of study, she achieves the impossible. She gets in. Now, if you're thinking this sounds like other academy-based fantasy stories, trust me, that's exactly what Kuang wants you to think. Because just when you're settling into what feels like a familiar rhythm of training montages and classroom rivalries, the story takes a sharp turn into much darker territory. What sets the Puppy War apart is how it seamlessly blends different elements. There's military strategy, martial arts training, and fascinating magic systems based on shamanic traditions. But more than that, it's a brutally honest exploration of power, war, and the cost of vengeance. Let's talk about what makes this book special. First, the world building is exceptional. Kuang draws heavily from Chinese history, particularly the Second Sino-Japanese War, but transforms these historical elements into something uniquely her own. The magic system, centered around the power of gods and psychedelic substances, is unlike anything I've encountered in fantasy before. The character development is where this book truly shines. Rin starts as an underdog we can all root for. Every choice she makes has consequences, and not all of them are good. The supporting characters are equally well drawn, particularly her mentor Jiang, whose seemingly erratic behavior masks a deeper wisdom. The martial art elements in this book are particularly well executed. Kuang doesn't just throw in random fighting scenes. The combat training is integral to the story and character development. The way she describes the physical and mental discipline required feels authentic and grounded, even when supernatural elements come into play. Now, I need to give a content warning here. This book deals with some very heavy themes. While the first third of the book might feel like a military academy story, it evolves into a brutal war narrative that doesn't shy away from depicting the horrors of conflict. If you're sensitive to descriptions of violence or war crimes, you might want to approach this book with caution. What I find most impressive is how Kuang handles these difficult themes. She never sensationalizes the violence. Instead, she uses it to explore deeper questions about power, revenge, and the cycle of violence. How far would you go to protect what you love? What price are you willing to pay for power? These questions become increasingly central as the story progresses. While this is the first book in a completed trilogy, it works perfectly well as a standalone if you want to test the waters. Though I will say, if you do get invested in these characters, which is pretty much inevitable, you'll want to continue with the series. Without spoiling anything, the story only gets more complex and morally challenging as it progresses. What makes the Puppy War stand out in modern fantasy is its unflinching examination of war, power, and colonialism. While many fantasy books touch on these themes, few do it with such historical awareness and psychological depth. Kuang's background in Chinese history shines through, giving the fantasy elements a weight of authenticity that makes them all the more impactful. The writing style might take some getting used to. Kuang's prose is direct and doesn't waste time with flowery descriptions, but this straightforward approach makes the more intense scenes hit even harder. She knows exactly when to linger on a moment and when to push the pace forward. So would I recommend The Puppy War? Absolutely. But with a few caveats. If you're looking for a light fantasy read, this isn't it. But if you want a challenging, thought-provoking story that will stay with you long after you finish it, one that combines military fantasy with deep historical influences and complex character, then you need to pick this up. If you read The Puppy War, what did you think about Rin's journey? Let me know in the comments below. And if you read the entire trilogy, no spoilers please, but I'd love to hear how you think it compares to other modern fantasy series. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this review, and hit that bell icon to stay updated on future videos. I've got more fantasy and horror book reviews coming up that you don't want to miss. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the darkest stories teach us the most about ourselves. See you in the next chapter.